Good evening. Welcome to our fourth week of our BPS reopening feedback sessions. And tonight we're going to be talking about technology and some remote learning, and I'm going to be joined by our Director of Technology Integration, Dennis Valano. My name's Patrick Larkin. I'm the Assistant Superintendent. I want to thank Jen Dodge and our producer tonight, Jonathan Vias, for his support. And with that, we're going to get right into our slides with Dennis. So first slide, please.
Thank you, Patrick. I'm going to share my screen here. You able to see that, Patrick?
1 second, it's loading. We're good.
All right. So we're going to provide an update about educational technology and remote learning that has to do with the educational technology in Burlington. And as Patrick said, my name is Dennis Valano. I'm Director of Technology Integration for Burlington Public Schools. And I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what my role is and what my team's role is so we can kind of frame what we're talking about tonight. I work with the library and technology team in Burlington Public Schools. Our team is responsible for providing many different types of supports to students and staff. And the team is made up of technology specialist teachers and library teachers. And I just want to take a minute, the closure that happened during this situation and what was needed to be done to support teachers and students and even families. I couldn't have been more proud of the team and everything that they did to support staff and everybody during the situation. They were really called upon to do quite a bit to help everyone through the needs of remote learning, and they did a tremendous job, and I was very proud of their effort in that. So I just want to take a minute to thank them for that. Their efforts haven't ended yet, though. We're still working on everything that's going to be coming up for the fall. And to give you a little bit of background, library and technology team teachers are educators. They're part of the educational department in Burlington Public Schools. And they really kind of provide the how do I do that support for Burlington. We actually used to have a professional development program called How Do I Do That, where teachers could come and learn about different technology tools and items. And that's what our team provides support for. We collaborate with staff on tech integration. We provide support for applications and for students and staff and family as well to learn about applications. And we provide support for integrating technology into the curriculum. The team is also made up of library teachers, so we provide all the library programming for all of the schools in Burlington. And we provide instruction. Some of our team members actually do teach courses and classes, but we provide instruction and professional development. We work very closely with the IT department, but we're not the IT department. And I do try to make a little bit of a distinction there because we have different roles. We're lucky to have a great IT department with Jose D'Souza, Eric Calandrello, Theo Goulis, and Fadine Soterial, who run the IT department for the town, for the schools, and with a partnership with the town. But their role is a little bit different. They're the kind of can you fix it folks. They provide and service devices. They provide support and help make sure the network is running, as well as phones, projectors, peripherals, things that you might use in your classroom or in a school building. And they deal with accounts and password recovery. And as I said, they have a great partnership with the town IT department. So although we all kind of work on this together, we do have slightly different tasks. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go tonight through this presentation, because if you're needing support, you may need to reach out to one team or the other, because we can help you with different parts of remote learning with technology, whether you're in school or at home, or if you're just learning about technology and you want to learn more about what we're providing. So before we get into some of the things that we're working on, that we're working towards for this reopening of schools, I wanted to take a little bit of a step back. And our educational technology program has been really going since the one-to-one program began at Burlington High School. We've been recognized pretty much nationally as a leader in educational technology programming. We have an outstanding student help desk program that started years ago, and we've had several members, including Jen Sheffer and Leroy Wong, who have facilitated that outstanding help desk program. We've actually hosted now, I know this seems like a crazy number, but we've hosted over 6,000 educators from across the country to learn with us and about us and provide sessions with educational technology. We've had visitors from all over the world, Singapore, Thailand, Kuwait. Really an amazing experience. When I talk to people about what I really have loved about what we've done, one of the most exciting things is meeting these educators from around the world and talking to them about how technology is used in their schools and how we use it here in Burlington. And I bring that up because even with all of that, even with the program that we have in place and the system that we have in place, we weren't fully prepared for the remote learning and COVID-19 and our situation that we dealt with this spring. I really don't think anyone was fully prepared. We used to talk a lot about snow days and how could we make up for a couple of snow days with distance learning or at-home learning using technology. But we never really meant to prepare that for weeks or months of remote learning. So we have a lot to work on. We have a lot to improve, and we've listened to the feedback from families, we've listened to the feedback from staff, we listened to the feedback from students as part of our working groups, and we're going to work on some of those improvements now moving forward. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, some of the things that we're working on and developing. Some of the things you'll hear about tonight actually were in the plans before the COVID-19 situation. And we're going to be implementing those along with things from the IT department that we're already in planning that will help support any kind of situation that we're in this fall. So as Dr. Conti presented this week and last week, we're going to have a few different possible scenarios for learning, whether it's in person, the hybrid model, which is in person and distance, or students who are fully remote. And our team is planning for every scenario. It's important that we're ready for whatever we're going to be dealing with for an instructional environment. That means the technology is going to be the same sources of technology, but we will use them slightly differently in these different environments. Certainly, the way we've developed our programming is for in-person learning. And everybody knows that that's the best instructional setting for our students and staff. In-person learning can never be fully replaced by remote learning. But we do want to prepare for each scenario. So whatever we are dealing with when school begins and throughout the school year, we want to be prepared for it. One big thing is they all present their own challenges. Even in-person learning presents its own challenge. Even without COVID, it presents its own challenge. Technology is always a challenging thing to stay on top of because it's always evolving, it's always changing. But we're going to follow some DESE, that's the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education guidance, especially when it comes to remote learning, and try to be as prepared as possible for each of these environments. So we've been doing this kind of in every presentation. Dr. Conti and Patrick have been doing this quite a bit, defining some terms to try to create some consistency. So remote learning, in a very simplified way of explaining remote learning, it's any instruction that happens outside of a school building. And I do want to emphasize that although I'm going to talk mostly about technology tonight, remote learning does not always mean technology. We used to talk about this a lot with our digital portfolios. Not every item in a student digital portfolio is driven by technology. It could have been something they did in an art class or in a phys ed class or a music class. So in this case, remote learning is not just technology or digital resources. We're going to provide non-digital resources as well for our students. That was something that was a big challenge for us during the closure because it happened so quickly, but we're preparing for that as a district now to provide non-digital resources along with the technology that we provide our students. We've talked about this quite a bit. Synchronous learning is learning in a remote setting that happens live. The teacher leads instruction live through technology. And asynchronous learning is typically a situation where a student completes something that's pre-recorded or some kind of assignment or something on their own, a little bit more on their own time, provides them a little bit more flexibility. Distance learning is essentially the same thing as remote, but we typically describe distance learning as part of a hybrid scenario. So if you're in person and you have home learning, which some of our students may be in once we start school year. So distance learning is just a different way of describing remote, but it's part of the hybrid system where you might be in person some days and learning from home other days. In distance learning, it's the same thing for synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous, the teacher leads live instruction. Asynchronous, the student completes pre-recorded or work on their own time. So just to clear those definitions and continue to try to explain those as we move forward. And so we've talked a little bit about this over the past couple of weeks. We'll have to have some options if we're in a remote learning situation, and we will have some students who will be remote learning right from the beginning because they may choose to do so, families may choose to do so. And we're working on creating a remote learning team. Now, team members from my group, the library and technology team, will likely be involved in this and providing some support for this. But this is meant to be an educational team to provide instructions for students who remain fully remote. Our goal is to match this with students that need certain things for their grades, for curriculum, but it is difficult and there is some complex issues with that just because of enrollment numbers and the individual needs of students. But I do want to make it clear, and I know Dr. Conti has said this earlier this week, this is our goal, is to create this remote learning team from Burlington educators. You may have heard the Department of Education is providing some options, and they're providing this to all the districts in the state. Most of these are fully remote. These are online classes, and one option is from two virtual learning schools, Greenfield Commonwealth and the Tech Connections Academy. They're going to provide some synchronous and asynchronous classes. They could be single courses or a bundled group of courses. These programs do include instructors. They have certified educators who provide the instruction, but the student in this particular case would remain enrolled in the district. They would remain enrolled in Burlington if they were to take these courses. These virtual schools are open to the public. You can enroll your child in them, and they actually do leave the district. They are no longer enrolled, but they are actually, this program that they're providing with the state is something a little bit different, and it's a partnership where the student remains enrolled in the district. The state is also working with two other vendors that provide online learning, Edgenuity and Florida Virtual School. Once again, these are fully remote. These are online classes. They provide synchronous and asynchronous learning. They have a very extensive course catalog that runs from all the way from kindergarten to grade 12. They have all different levels of courses for high school as well. These may include instructors, and I know we've highlighted that because I think that's really an important point. These can be courses that are led by instructors from these virtual programs, or a member of the Burlington Public Schools staff, a teacher from Burlington, can lead these courses and provide the instruction using the platforms, the learning management platforms that Edgenuity and Florida Virtual have. The student does still remain in the district, and the Department of Education is providing some professional development for districts if they choose to use these options. And I know that Dr. Conti presented some of this earlier this week, and there was discussion, and we heard some feedback about it. So I wanted Patrick and I to spend a minute to just talk about that. These are not meant to replace any Burlington educators. That is not the reason why Burlington would explore any of these options. These are options that can support needs of individual courses, especially if a matching teacher is not available in a remote setting. Or we could do some of these options in case of the needs of enrollment numbers, the students and staff participating in a fully remote learning. But I do want to stress that we need to explore all options. We need to explore everything that's available to us to make sure that we provide a better remote learning environment this fall.
Dennis, can I add something?
Sure.
So yeah, just to reiterate what Dennis said, our struggle right now, the complex task we have, is to find out all of the students that are going to be remote, and to also find out how many of our staff can physically be here in the building. As we get that information in over the course of the next week, that's how we will be able to identify clearly who will be on which remote learning team. The fact of the matter is we've used Edgenuity in the past at the high school level to fill holes in kids' schedules where we couldn't find a teacher. A student wants to take a particular course, but because it's only offered once during the day and it conflicts with something else that we offer, we've used Edgenuity over the last few years to fill student schedules. So again, our goal is to have Burlington Public Schools teachers teaching our students this year. And we will use these resources provided by the state if we have to fill holes as we match students' student needs with where our teachers are available.
Great, thank you, Patrick. So I want to go through this point here. This is going to be from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's remote learning guidance. So what we've done is we've started to look at each of the areas of their guidance. And in bold on this slide, it says access and connectivity for every student and educator. That's one of their bulleted areas in their guidance that every district needs to be able to provide. So how are we going to do these things that the remote learning guidance outlines from the state? Well, we do have a one-to-one iPad learning program in place. Obviously, we've had that for several years, but we've only had iPads go home at the high school level. Beginning this year, all iPads will be able to go home with all grade levels. And we're even looking as early as kindergarten and hopefully getting devices even into preschool students' hands if needed. So that's a major change. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through tonight's presentation. We will continue, as we did during the closure, provide district provided Wi-Fi hotspots for families without access to the internet, because that's a critical component. Connectivity and devices are critical for any remote learning situations. And we do have staff provided 1 to 2 devices, depending on their role in the district. All staff are provided with Chromebook, iPad. Some staff have different types of devices specific to their area, like art and music, but all staff are provided with 1 or 2 devices. Another part of the remote learning guidance is structured learning schedules. So in the Department of Elementary, the state guidance for the closure, they didn't outline a structured schedule. In this case, they want us to have a structured schedule, and I think we're all in agreement on that. We've received a lot of feedback from families and staff as well on that. So no matter what situation we're in, no matter what learning environment we're in, we're going to have structured learning schedules, and we're attempting to make them mirror the in-person learning so that they can be very similar if you're at home in a remote setting. Now, these are actually requirements by the state for remote learning, and I'm confident that we'll be able to meet all of these requirements. They require that we have procedures in place for all students to participate in remote learning, including a system for tracking attendance and participation. So really that means we're going to have attendance taken whether you're in school, hybrid, or remote. You are going to have to be part of attendance tracking, so an attendance policy. Remote work is aligned to state standards. And that was a little bit different in the closure, where the state provided some guidance on review and not really pushing forward with new academic work. In this case, they want us to follow all state standards, and clearly that's our goal. Teachers and administrators must regularly communicate with students, parents, and guardians. That will clearly be part of any remote learning that happens this fall.
Can I add one thing, Dennis, that's come up? Another thing that's come up from some of the questions that we've had is about grading as well. So again, in that remote learning guidance that's articulated by the state, it clearly says that we have to assess students, like use the same grading systems for students who are doing remote learning or students that are at home. And I had a conversation, I believe it was with a high school parent today. And again, the courses on the transcripts are going to be the same. They're going to receive the same types of grades. As we're alluding to with attendance, we have to track whether they come to school, come to class, just like we would if they're in person. So all of that should be consistent.
Yes, absolutely. Another area of the guidance is uniform digital learning platforms. And this is also an area where I think that we had some of these in place, but we were inconsistent. And I don't mind saying that. We were inconsistent as a district, and we can't be inconsistent any longer with this. So Burlington Public Schools has learning management and communication platforms in place. We've had them for several years. Moving forward, these must be used in all classes, courses, and subject areas. This is a significant change for consistency. And much of this does also come from significant amount of family feedback. So to give you an outline of it, in pre-K, our staff is actually going to use Google Classroom. And typically we wouldn't say Google Classroom is for students that young, but the preschool is actually going to use Google Classroom as a parent communication tool. It makes sense to communicate with parents, provide lessons, provide activities, and have a system that works well with parents for knowing what's happening, having a schedule, having a calendar. For grades K to 2, Seesaw is our platform. And many of you who might have elementary students are aware of Seesaw. It's one of really the premier educational products available. And we will continue to use that for all students in all classes, grades K-2. For grades 3-5, we still use Seesaw, and Seesaw is still a very good option, but we need to start to introduce them more to the Google Classroom setting and Google Apps. So for grades 3-5, it'll be Seesaw and Google Classroom. For 6-12, there's really no change here. Google Classroom was the foundational tool. It will remain that tool. And again, we should be using that in all classes and all courses. And I'll be honest, again, this was something that we had in place, but we need to be more consistent with it. The feedback that we received from families was that our students were having to go into too many different digital spaces, and we need to work on that as a district, and that's how we're going to do it, by defining more so defining which grades should be using which product. Another part of learning platforms, defined by the guidance from the state, is collaboration tools. And they define collaboration tools as services where you can have multiple people collaborating on a document, or meeting virtually, or collaborating to put a presentation together like this one. So we have Google Apps. We're a Google Apps district. We have Google Apps in place, and we also have Google Meet. So those are our core collaboration tools. Content platforms. The state describes that every district should have a content delivery platform available. We have some of the best that really you can get in education. Newsela, you may not be as familiar with Newsela, but Newsela provides quite a bit of content across many subject areas. There's readings, there's videos, there's content that can be put into presentations for students, and can have questions and answer sessions. Discovery Education provides an incredible library of streaming video, and they've even done more now with content for coding and computer science. They have great partnerships with NASA, major sports platforms like MLB and the NBA. And so we've had Discovery Education in our district for many years. And BrainPop, which is typically more used for the elementary level, daily videos for different curriculum areas, different core subject areas. It's one of the most popular products that we have for our elementary students. They love Moby. So if you know who Moby is, you know what I'm talking about. And then
Dennis,
the state defines something that you may not be as familiar with. It's called single sign-on platforms. Single sign-on is a portal that you go to when you log in, and that unlocks a bundle of different apps, or a core set of apps. We actually do have one in place. Many districts don't, or are working towards this. We have Clever for kindergarten through 8th grade. And Clever provides a portal where you can sign in and have access to several different accounts and apps like BrainPop. And for high school students, typically if they have an account like that, they're using their Google account, their Gmail school Google account, as their single sign-on to applications. So those are in place. We are going to work towards even more apps being tied to Clever and the Google single sign-on to provide more consistency.
Dennis, can you mention a little bit more about Google Meet as well? I know people ask why we don't use Zoom, and what about Google Meet? And I know they have some features that they're going to be adding in the fall as well.
Yeah, so in a few slides, we'll have a couple of the updates on Google Meet, which are really exciting for our teachers. But from a privacy standpoint, for one reason, well, we use Google Meet for one because it's tied into our Google accounts, and it's something that we have control as a school district for. Zoom has two different options. Zoom has a free option and a paid option. The free option is really not considered a student option. It's typically considered almost like an 18+ platform. They do have a free paid version for education that is something that schools can look at, and we've explored that as well. But we like that Google Meet is tied into our Google Apps system for our students. And some of the updates that I'll mention in a minute here coming up really will help teachers and students with that. I think there were features that educators were asking for, and now they'll have access to them. So I'm very excited about that. One of the things I want to mention is our team, the library and technology team, is going to be putting out other presentations and some live sessions. And I have some dates coming up later in the presentation that will go into some of these topics in more detail. So today, you don't need to memorize any of this. You don't need to be taking screenshots. We're going to go into more detail. But we really want to highlight one thing. These single sign-on systems, so Clever, Google single sign-on, even our new iPad mobile device manager, which I'll mention in a minute in a little bit more detail, are all managed by the student Google accounts. That's really the critical key to connecting to student accounts. So every student has a Google account. It is set up with their LACID at bps1to1.org. Their LACID is a district number, a unique number, and every student uses that to sign into these systems. At this point, we also have a security setting in place where the students can't email outside of these domains. So they can't email outside of the student or staff domain. I do know we've had some questions about that, and we are looking into options for parents to possibly have the ability to email students. But for now, they are locked to our system for protection, for security protection for our students. But that's really the core account. That's the account that students need to know and parents should know for opening up these single sign-on platforms. So here's a little bit about the new features. So we have some pretty exciting for in EdTech, some exciting features coming to our core foundational apps. Seesaw has many new features coming. Video enhancements, multi-page posts, which means you can have more of a presentation style activity, new draw and record features for teachers and students. We're really excited about that. Members of our team are providing professional development sessions on this, and we're going to put some videos out. We already have some videos posted to our Google site with some great information on the new features in Seesaw that we're very excited about. Google Classroom has, I believe, over 50 new features coming to it. A major one for students and staff is originality reports. We can check on plagiarism. We can check on appropriate use of content. They're putting in to-do lists so that it helps students organize what they need to complete for classes, which is a nice feature to add to the ability to organize student work and what's due and what's coming up. And they're also improving their translation options, which is important for many of our students and families. So we're excited to see that. They're adding a major feature for teachers and educators for student engagement metrics and data. Now, we haven't seen all of this yet, but what we're being told is we're going to be able to track student work and tie that into engagement and to standards and track their progress on some of those standards. So that's a nice new feature in Google Classroom. Google Classroom really is becoming more and more of a full learning management system. And it's been a foundation of ours for several years, but we're excited about the new features coming to it. Google Meet. So Google Meet had, take a step back on Google Meet for a minute. Google Meet was not really created to do what everyone used it for during the COVID situation. It was more for, a personal meeting platform. What they're really trying to create now with Google Meet is a professional video conferencing platform, much more similar to WebEx by Cisco or Zoom. And they're adding lots of features this fall that were requested by students and teachers from all over the country. Features including hand raising. So instead of a student having to say something, they can just put up an icon that says they have a question or they'd like to answer a question. Background, so that you can put something behind you so that you don't have to show what room you're in at your home if you're remote. You can put a picture behind you or something else that blocks out and blurs the background behind you. Tile view. Essentially, what our students really like to be able to do is see each other in their class. So one of the things is with tile view, you can see everybody in the class. All the students can be there on the screen together. And for teachers, digital whiteboards, which is a really nice feature. We really worked on some ways to help teachers with this, but it was challenging by using iPad apps and separate things in their Google Meet sessions. But now all of that's going to be tied right into Google Meet. So I'm very excited about that feature. And the last one is better moderation controls for teachers. So if you have a class and you have 15 people in there or a session and you want to be able to mute microphones or open microphones, you'll have that ability now in the new features coming in Google Meet. So these are all new things that they're a little bit out of our control. We don't exactly know when they'll all be available. Most of the Seesaw features are available now. We expect the Google Classroom and Google Meet updates to be coming out within the next few weeks or latest probably sometime within September. So another area for the guidance from the state is the technology system. So this part of the conversation tonight, this is a little bit more on the IT department side of what we do. So this is not so much for the library and technology team. This is more for Jose D'Souza and his team for the IT department. And I want to stress something before we kind of get into these. What was happening was a lot of these things were in planning process already. They were already happening or supposed to happen this year. Unfortunately, some of them have been delayed, and I can explain that a little bit more. About every 5 years, we have a network infrastructure refresh. And that's the Wi-Fi, the networking in the schools. That's access points, how you connect to the internet, and the servers that control all of that. Jose and his team are actually in the process of doing that now. They were planning on that before the COVID situation happened. It's a huge upgrade over our current system because it's a newer system. It's got new technology built in, and it should be in place for the school year. However, it has been delayed due to the pandemic. A lot of the technology is delayed. I've been looking for things all over the country from different vendors, and it's very hard to find lots of different technology items, all the way from laptops to webcams to even adapters and cords. There is quite a bit that's out of stock. So the infrastructure is happening. Jose and his team are working on that. It should be a great upgrade over what we currently have, but it's in process. It will be an upgrade at all school buildings. I did want to stress that. Jose wanted to make sure we stress that it's an upgrade for internet access at all schools. Staff devices. There's been some discussion about this, and this has come over the past couple of weeks. The district does have a practice to refresh staff devices after 3 full school years. It's not really a policy, it's a practice, something we try to do, something the IT department tries to maintain based on budgets and need. That's continuing this year. For this school year, the IT department has let me know that Francis Wyman, Fox Hill, and there's some department-based upgrades at the high school. So Francis Wyman, Fox Hill staff and department-based high school staff. I don't have the exact departments, but I could probably get that for you. And that was part of the annual refresh for staff devices. We also have the Early Childhood Center staff is getting new devices from a town warrant article that we're very thankful for, that was supported, and that will be upgrading some older technology for our preschool staff. Again, the negative here is the delay. So we do know that devices that are run by a certain type of technology by Intel are delayed. So Chromebooks that run the Intel processors are delayed. So some of these devices are delayed, but we're checking daily. Fadine from the IT department is contacting vendors daily, looking for arrival updates, and hopefully these devices will be out to the district soon. One other thing for classroom technology, we were part of an annual upgrade for projectors, which are the kind of the front of the room technology in our classrooms. This year was Francis Wyman was scheduled to get all new projectors and some departments at the high school. This is still in planning. This is still happening. Projectors have been ordered. Some of those are also delayed, but that is still the plan for the IT department to upgrade Francis Wyman and some departments at the high school with all new, these are really nice LED projectors in their classrooms. So that's still in planning, but again, slowed a little bit because of the situation. Some more things that are technology upgrades, and some of these, well, really all of these were still part of the plan before the COVID situation. We're gonna have a new device management system called Mosile, and I'm gonna describe that a little bit more in a minute, but that's a really big upgrade over what we had in the past. The IT department has a new ticketing and support system called Get Help. It replaces our old School Dude system. That's a place where staff can put in tickets and ask for support with technology devices and network. And we have something we've been working on for several years, security compliance. And this has more to do with applications. So we're working with the Student Data Privacy Alliance to make sure that we review all of our applications for student data privacy and staff data privacy. Our current list of approved apps and sites, which is growing pretty regularly, and you'll see some that go on and some that may come off, that is actually available on the website under Technology and Library. And another section of the guidance is training. So we are going to provide training for staff. Staff professional development will be mostly led by our library and technology team. They're already doing some of that this summer, and we'll continue to do that in August, later in August. Support is from the IT department. They will continue to provide support for students, families, and staff. And we're also posting some sessions for some great educational content that's happening virtually from outside providers. Those will be posted as well that educators and families can take part in. So for the summer series, and I have Area 123 up here. Normally this would have happened in Area 123. Area 123 is a space that we created for professional learning and for our esports program at the high school. Meant to be a professional development center and a place for innovation and learning about creative uses of technology. The room is at the high school. Most of what we'll do will be virtual, but we may be able to have some sessions in there at some point. So we're calling it a virtual summer series for now. At this point, we began staff sessions that were optional for staff, mostly about Google Apps and Seesaw on August 10th. And we're going to have all of these sessions as part of the return for staff after August 24th. And again, that's led by the library and technology team members. We're also going to have family presentations beginning on August 27th. We're going to post some pre-recorded sessions first, so everyone can review those and watch those. There'll be videos and presentations focused on foundational technology. Clever, Seesaw, Google Apps, Google Classroom, and Google Meet will be featured. And you can view those anytime once they're posted and review them if you need to go through them step by step. We'll follow up with some live question and answer sessions, and we'll do those through Google Meet at a later date. The reason we're doing that is when we survey and hear from families, we get about almost a 50-50 split. Some people like the method of being live and asking questions, and some people just want to watch a video and be able to do it at their own pace. I actually like that method personally. I like to watch a video on YouTube. I can check the parts that I need. I can review what I need, and I can kind of go at my own pace. But we're going to offer both. Everything is at that address. We'll post this as well. It's actually a Google site, and it's linked from the school district websites as well. Here are the dates. We're going to premiere the pre-recorded session for elementary on August 27th. A week later, we'll premiere one for the middle school and high school. And then September 17th and September 24th will be the live question and answer sessions. I'll be there leading those along with members of our team. And so hopefully at that point, we may know more specifics about who's learning in person, who's learning remotely, and we'll be able to answer questions that families and students need answered. And I don't want to leave out library. We have an outstanding library team. I love working with our library team. They create some really incredible library programming for Burlington all across the district. We have award-winning librarians, and Miss Janovitz at the Mrs. Graham at the high school has worked closely with our English department and Shannon Janovitz. So I really want to highlight the library program. They've done an incredible job trying to create some library services even going into the fall. So we know we're going to have some limitations. We're going to have some limitations on shared resources because of the COVID situation. But our plan is to still provide books, paper books, ebooks. We have several online subscriptions. We have research databases, and we do read-alouds. Our library teachers do read-alouds to elementary students. We know there's going to be some challenges in this. Ultimately, a lot of this probably won't happen in the actual learning commons space, in the physical space of the learning commons, but we're confident we'll be able to still provide some of these services which are critical to our students in Burlington. So the next few slides are about the one-to-one program. And if you've had a child, a son or a daughter who's gone through as a freshman, you probably will recognize some of these things. I'm not going to go through everything in detail, only because we're going to have a separate presentation about the iPad learning program that everyone will need to watch before they receive their iPads. But essentially, we're talking the big difference this year is that iPads can go home with all students. This isn't just for high school. They'll be used whether they're remote or in person. The expectations are still set by teachers. We have a responsible use policy and student handbooks set up to guide that. And the key here is that students are responsible for the care of their device. The biggest change here is if you're a high school parent, you're very familiar with this, but as an elementary or middle school parent, you're not. The program is set up where the students and the families do take responsibility of the device. So you're essentially taking responsibility of a $294 device. We will have a video presentation that goes through this in a lot of detail. I'm going to go through it again quickly tonight, but the presentation will have more detail. We'll outline the insurance information, the responsible use policy, And you'll have to put in a digital signature. This will all be done through a form, an online form, in order to receive that iPad to be able to take home for the 2021 school year. This, again, if you've had a child that's gone through the high school, it's essentially the same process, but we're doing that now for all students so that students can take them home at all levels. Insurance will once again be offered through Worth Ave Group. We've been working with Worth Ave Group for many years now in the one-to-one program. It is optional, and I have that in bold and red letters there. It is optional. We do not mandate the requirement of insurance. My son's in a different district, and they have to get insurance. It is mandated. Burlington doesn't do that, but it's highly recommended. iPads break. They're glass screens, they break. So it is something we definitely recommend that families consider the insurance through Worth Ave. The insurance policy itself is, again, I'll go into this in more detail in the iPad specific presentation, but it's a good policy. There's no deductible. There used to be a deductible. There isn't any longer. It is $60 a year for the premium, but it's covering, again, a $294 device. You do this directly with Worth Ave. This is not a policy that you do with the school system. You're not doing this with the district. You go to the portal that's set up, it's open all year long, and you register for an iPad insurance policy. And again, not mandatory, but it is highly recommended. And I think that people have taken advantage of it, know that it is helpful if needed. And Fadine, I wanted to put this in big, bold, flashing letters to give her some attention. And Fadine is great. She helps me tremendously. But she is the point of contact for insurance. She's the expert. So if you need support at any time with insurance, an insurance policy or a claim, please reach out to Fadine. She knows the system. She's worked with Worth Ave closely over the years, and she can provide support. She's in the IT department, and she's available through email and phone number, and most of you probably even know how to reach Fadine, so she's available if you need some help with insurance. One thing that isn't the same at high school and K-8 is cases. We do not provide cases for high school students. That may change in years to come, but for this year, just like in previous years, freshmen don't receive a case. They're free to choose whatever kind of case they want. For elementary and middle school students, some of those grades will actually receive a keyboard case. Some of them had them this past year, and in this coming year, more students will receive this all-in-one keyboard case. One of the ones we're using is by Logitech. It's a great case. We've tested it pretty extensively. They have a new version of it, waterproof and really durable case, but it allows you to use the iPad with a full keyboard, or if you choose not to, you can just type and touch on screen. So more and more of your students, you will see, will have keyboard cases this year. Really critical in all of this, and I say this every year at that presentation with the freshmen, make sure you save all of your data, all of your videos, pictures, docs to Google Drive. We have this set up so that if your iPad ever breaks or is lost or disappears, you can get a different iPad and just sign into Drive, and all of your work and all of your materials are there and ready to go. The Google Drive for students and staff is unlimited cloud data, so unlimited storage. You can save everything you need to there, and that is where you should back everything up to. Many of the apps that you use, especially for middle and high school, if you're using Notability, many of these apps back up directly to Google Drive. So it's really important that you use that as your storage place for data. For restrictions, the iPads will all have some restrictions. We do have security settings in place to provide the safest and the best system for our students to access apps under supervision by educators, by the staff. So the App Store is not available on student iPads. Apps are available through something called self-service. It's an application on the device where apps that are approved by Burlington Public Schools teachers are located. So you can't remove that restriction. There's no opt-out of that. It is part of the student data privacy that we need to have in place. But we'll explain a little bit more in detail as we go through these other technology presentations with our team about what that means. One thing that we're really excited about, the IT department has started using a new system called Mosile. And I'm really excited about this because one of the difficult challenges during the closure was we had some iPads going home, and we couldn't have access to those iPads if the student needed a specific app or if an app needed to be updated. they could only be done at the schools, and our schools were closed. This new system, which is called an MDM, it's a mobile device management system, allows our IT department to help control and manage these iPads anywhere. So if you're home and a student needs an app, we can get that app to the student or a group of students or a grade of students. If there are apps that need updates, we can make those available even at home in a remote setting. I did want to stress this though, this does not include control over cameras. All of us, many of us are parents of students, and we've heard these things where, cameras can be controlled remotely. None of that can happen in this system. This is just a system that allows our IT department to push apps out and to set some security restrictions. But I'm very excited that this will be a huge improvement over the closure where we couldn't help support students when they were remote with iPads. I'm going to go through this again a little more in detail with the iPad specific presentation, but just so everyone's aware, when your student is in a Burlington school, the iPad is completely filtered, inappropriate content is blocked, inappropriate websites are blocked, activities can be monitored by the system. Students are held responsible for their behavior online, and I say this all the time to our students, especially our freshmen. What you do online can significantly affect your future. We hear about it all the time, that if a student posts something inappropriate or that isn't safe, that it comes back to them later in life. We hear about it with even professional athletes. So we always talk about that. One key difference is if you're at home or if you're in a different location that's not a Burlington school, the iPads are not filtered. So that we don't have those same protections. It's based on whatever your home network is, how your home network is set up. So parents should be highly involved. One thing is, our IT department is working on a system that could help filter iPads safely and at home, and that's currently under development. It's just not completely available yet. So we are working towards that.
Dennis, can I mention something?
Yep.
So again, going back to the original iPad deployment, I don't know how many years ago it was now, things have changed a lot with technology. Like everybody has one of these now, even a lot of young students. But it's still best practice, you know this. I have a freshman at home as well. Like to keep tabs on them, know who they're video chatting with, know what they're using. Again, we are working on trying to provide filtering for our school device when it's in your home. But I just want to reiterate like the things that when I got my first computer, at the house, we were told like let our students work at the kitchen table where we can kind of see what they're doing online. And I think we've kind of gotten a little more liberal, like a lot of parents, in monitoring this stuff. So again, we're also going to talk about how you can do some filtering. I know people in Burlington either have Comcast, Verizon, or RCN. So our tech department, again, is going to help support you if you have questions on how to do that. We'll find the resources for you as well. Because we want to support you and make sure our students are safe, whether they're home or at school. So thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, we have some resources already. Our team has posted several resources about home networks and security and safe ways to use your home network on our site. We have a blog that we're actually transitioning over to the website, but bpsedtech.org, it's listed from the district websites, has a family section with quite a bit of information there about Comcast and Apple and Verizon that you can check out as well. One thing we've been working on for several years is to improve our student and staff data privacy. This is a challenge because everybody sees free apps and free extensions, and they look great, but they can create some privacy issues that we need to be aware of. So we're working on developing a partnership with the Student Data Privacy Alliance, which provides schools with a registry of resources that are approved and safe for students and staff to use. And we're also we work with and check the Student Privacy Pledge organization, who does this as well, where vendors have an agreement with them that they're providing safe student data privacy applications. So all of our account-based products are reviewed for this, and this current list of approved sites is posted on the website. Quickly about the review process, because we do get some questions about that. The emphasis is on student and staff data privacy, but we also review apps for curriculum content and integration. We don't want to have a lot of different things that do the same thing. And we got feedback about this as well from families during the COVID closure, that perhaps there were too many tools that did the same thing. So our goal is to provide a few tools that do many things. The concept is something I used to talk about many years ago when we didn't want people to go crazy with apps when iPads first came out. We wanted to have just our foundational apps to start. Consolidation creates consistency. So we do review apps for privacy, but we also review them for how they tie into what's necessary for the curriculum. For parents, I always recommend this. I'm always asked, where do I go to check out some stuff, to check out apps? Even my son wants to play a video game. Where do I go to learn about it? And I always recommend Common Sense Media. You can Google that. It's a great resource for parents and families. And they have information about all kinds of digital media, all the way down to movies and music. So just a recommendation for parents. And again, that's one of those things that's listed on our site for family resources. Now, support. There's going to be need for support. Whether you're in school or remote or hybrid, whatever scenario we're in, you're going to need support with technology. So we have a system of basically a way to go through the steps if you need help. First, you do need to communicate with your teacher, again, in school or remote. Your teacher may reach out to members of our team, the library and technology team. They provide another level of technology support. If needed, it gets raised and elevated to the IT department. In many cases, the IT department is the group that can solve your problem. In this case, however, if your iPad is broken or something needs to be replaced, it may be an insurance situation. So that's kind of step 4, the possibility of insurance. And it's really important that I highlight again, I got the bold and red letters there. This is another thing from Jose and his team. If the iPad does break, you do not go to the Apple Store to replace the iPad. And we'll go into this again in more detail in the iPad specific presentation. But we need to have the iPads in our device management system in Burlington. So if you have a broken iPad, do not go to the Apple Store for replacement. Go through these steps to communicate it. Communicate with your teacher, who will take the steps from there to get to our IT department. Again, do not go to the Apple Store to replace, because our IT department has to have that device in the system. And Patrick and I have been working with a remote learning group. We're meeting with them after this session. We want to explore some other options for technology support. We want, especially if you're remote, we want to have some options, whether it's email, part of a ticketing system, or even a live call center. These are all things that we'd like to be able to offer. I don't know today what we'll be able to offer, but we're seeking some feedback from the remote learning working group on this, from parents and students and teachers, because I do think we're going to need some further technology support, especially with students and families that are working remotely. And I joke with the freshmen every year. I haven't even given you your iPad yet, and I'm already telling you about return condition. But the basic point here is that when you do leave Burlington schools, whether it's during a year, during graduation, you do need to return the iPad in good condition. Our IT department can help you with that if you ever have questions about condition. But you do have to return the device in working condition. And many of you have students who have gone through the high school know this process. Students are responsible for the condition of their device. So please make sure you highlight that, even with your younger students. And I'm sure our teachers will do that as well, as they always do with students in school. So I get a lot of questions about this, obviously, and some of them we have answers to. And some of them we honestly don't. We're working on them. When will students receive iPads? Well, some of this is to be determined. It'll likely be a combination of a pickup, especially if you're a remote student, or in school in a homeroom setting. So some of that still to be determined over the next couple of weeks, but I expect that it'll be an option of pickup or in school. Will loaner iPads be available? So if a student breaks a device, will there be loaner iPads available? And the honest answer here is normally yes. Normally we would have that. The library would typically have some loaner iPads available. However, during this situation with shared resources being restricted and sanitizing devices, that may not be possible. So that may be one difference this year that we're working on for loaner devices if something breaks. I get asked this a lot, will students keep the iPads over vacation weeks? Yes. Whatever happens during the school year, whether it's in person or remote or both or hybrid, they'll keep them throughout the entire school year. Will students keep the iPads over the summer months? Well, typically high school students do. Once the high school students receive their iPad, they keep them all throughout high school, even during the summer. We're not sure yet about the students in K to 8, whether those will be collected or stay with them during the summer, but that's something we'll determine during the school year. So this slide here, my team is probably watching and they're going to laugh. So they've heard me say this so many times that they may be tired of me saying it, but I've been using a slide like this for many years. It's even in our technology plans and documents. With educational technology, there's no finish line. It's always evolving. It's always changing. There's never a point in which you can say, I know it all. I'll use this app forever. It'll never change. There isn't any such thing as that with technology. So it's exciting to be a part of that. It's challenging to be a part of that because there's always something changing. We heard about that during the closure. Families reported that apps changed or websites had new features during the closure. We don't control that. We don't have any way to control that, but we will do our best to make sure that staff and students and families are aware of those changes and those updates. But I always say that when it comes to ed tech and instructional technology, there's no finish line, there's no end point. It's always evolving, and it's always needs to be, you always need to keep learning. There's never an end to it. So we'll continue to try to help people with that. No matter what the scenario is, no matter what situation we're in for learning in the fall, we'll do our best to help with that. Stay connected. Our department has a link here, but it's also on the website to the current resources for Google Site. Google Site has updated digital resources, the how-to guides. We'll have information on there about the professional development as well. And I just wanted to thank everybody for listening. Hopefully some of it was exciting, some of it was interesting. Please reach out to me if you have questions. I will say it honestly, I won't always have the answer. I will not always have the answer, but I will do my best to help you find the answer. Whether I have to reach out to a member of our team or the IT department, I will try to guide you in the right direction. And that's what all I can tell you. I may not always have the answer for you immediately, but I'll try to help. My email is there, and I'm also listed on the district website. So thank you all. And Patrick, I know you might want to just discuss this quickly as a reminder about the student return survey.
Thanks, Dennis. Yeah, again, we put out on the website to please, and we've emailed it to folks to complete the survey by tomorrow in regards to whether their students will start with in-person, which I know in-person means they'll be coming in every day on an abbreviated schedule to start at the elementary school, and there'll be a hybrid system for BECC, the middle school, and the high school, where certain students will come for 2 days and another group will come for the other 2 days. So we understand there's a lot of unanswered questions, there's a lot of moving parts. We're trying to, again, get a firm answer on how many staff we'll have in place for in-person, so we can make sure that, as we said, prioritize BPS staff for teaching the remote learning for students that won't be in school. And those answers will be clearer as we move forward. The one thing we can promise about remote learning in the fall is it's going to be nothing like remote learning in the spring. There'll be a much more structured schedule. Students will have check-ins with teachers every day with some structured time that very much mirrors the time that students who are physically here. Again, Dennis gave his email. My email is easily found. It's larkin@bpsk12.org. Please email me. I understand, as I said, I'm a dad of a child at a high school in another district, have a lot of the same questions, and if you don't get the answer, don't send the form in if there's a deal breaker for you. I talked to some folks on the telephone today as well. Happy to connect on the phone to do the best job I can answering these questions that still are up in the air in some cases. So again, we thank you for your patience. It's again, to repeat what we've heard all over the place, none of us could have ever predicted being in this situation, but our job is to make sure that our students are taken care of and our families are supported, and we're doing the best we can, and we appreciate your support and patience through all this. So again, I want to thank Jen Dodge and John Vias for our program tonight, and next week we will have Barbara Conley on, who is our nurse leader, and she'll be talking a lot about the COVID protocols and health and safety protocols that are going to be in place when school starts. So thank you very much. Thanks, Dennis. Wow, we're almost right on time. 6:59.